going on, guys? My name's Prefix, the suffix, and welcome to another React video. So the one we're going to be reacting to today is called Mini Nuclear Reactors Are Coming and They Could Reinvent the Energy Industry over on Seeker. So we're going to be going ahead and watching this, so let's get right into it.
We have a reactor trip on Unit 5. Containment is isolated. D-min water is isolated. CVCS is isolated. DHR is in service. And pressurizer heaters trips has occurred. All safety functions are green.
I understand we've had a reactor trip on Unit 5.
So this is apparently what nuclear reactors look like nowadays? Shit, technical rooms.
And all safety functions are green.
That's correct.
Ryan, can you take over the plan response to Unit 5?
You're in the middle of a simulated reactor trip. Something happened that's causing an emergency shutdown.
Brian, I have acknowledged the alarms.
Understand you've acknowledged alarms.
This demonstration took place at NuScale, a next-generation nuclear power company that wants to operate a string of up to 12 small reactors from a single control room. And their new model might just revive the nuclear power industry.
Oh, so they're researching it, trying to come up with different ways of doing
you
it.
Might imagine a
Holy
plant
shit.
like this. Enormous cooling towers, generators, steam billowing out the top. They've been part of our energy mix for decades, all working to harness the power of splitting uranium atoms.
Holy shit.
Nuclear power, to put it simply, is the most complicated way to boil water. What you're trying to do is to take the energy that's produced by splitting uranium nuclei and convert it into steam.
That steam then goes to a turbine, which turns a shaft, which then turns a generator to produce electricity.
When the splitting happens, it produces radioactive materials. Much of the nuclear plant is really focused on trying to make sure that these radioactive materials never escape out into the biosphere.
So can you imagine that, being able to, like, effectively, one, not cause a nuclear meltdown, but to be able to take on 8 different reactors from one control room? Like, you gotta weigh it. Like, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Like, are we just endangering people? Like, I know there's an energy crisis in the world, but still. I don't know. Why don't you guys tell me down below what you guys think? Do you think nuclear is the way to go? Or do you think we should find some other means? I don't know. That's pretty crazy.
There are hundreds of reactors boiling water across the globe, and you might actually be living near one. But the nuclear industry today is experiencing some major shifts. The 3 Mile Island and Fukushima disasters prompted countries like Germany and Switzerland to dismantle their nuclear power infrastructure. Despite efforts from Russia and China to kickstart new projects, global construction is currently on a downswing.
Holy shit, can you imagine that they're actually willing to pause negotiations on that? Like, that's insane. That really is insane. Like, it wasn't too long ago where we were fighting with these weapons. Yeah, like Chernobyl was a year after I was born. Like, isn't that crazy? I'm 35 now? Yeah, like, that's crazy.
Here in the US, aging reactors are retiring, and Westinghouse, one of the biggest names in nuclear, recently filed for bankruptcy.
Okay, before he goes into it, like, honestly, something that goes out of business and it's a nuclear company, like, that makes me nervous. I don't know.
Argument the nuclear industry used to make is that even though nuclear power plants are expensive to build, they are cheap to operate and therefore profitable. That equation has changed in the last 7 or 8 years. There have been a combination of 2 things that's been happening. One is, as these plants age, the cost of keeping them operational has been increasing, because simultaneously and more importantly, the cost of alternative source of energy has declined dramatically. The second thing I would say is that the argument used to be, oh, we've learned a lot from our mistakes in the past. We would be able to lower the cost and how fast these reactors are built. And that has not happened. The South Carolina
wow.
expensive, the propellants essentially pulled out of it. After spending about $9 billion, that's essentially been abandoned. The Georgia plant is now running at around $25 billion compared to a few $billion that was the initial expectation. I think the result of that is nobody in their right minds would be thinking about building another large nuclear plant in the country.
I don't doubt it. Holy shit, that's
It's
like a
tough
huge waste of
situation,
money.
especially with reports of rising CO2 emissions and calls for alternatives to meet climate goals.
Oh!
And that's where these next-generation reactors enter the conversation for multiple countries. Hoping to solve the problems of cost and scale, this new nuclear fleet are called SMRs, or Small Modular Reactors.
Alright, let's have a look at this diagram here. Holy shit. Steam tube sheets, valves, vessel support reactors. Oh my god, reactor cores? That's terrifying. It just looks like a glorified, like, propane tank. Like, holy shit.
Small in this context just means it's producing less than 300 megawatts of electricity. The plants that were being built in South Carolina and the ones that are being built in Georgia generate about 1100 megawatts of electricity.
Modular means that you can make these things in a factory. You're manufacturing all your high quality components. In parallel, you're doing all your civil construction on site. So you're making the pool, you're building the buildings. And then when the buildings are done, you transport the modules to the site and you install them.
Beyond these two, there is really nothing that constrains you about the design of the reactor. So there are literally dozens and dozens of SMR designs.
Portable nuclear power has a back-to-the-future feel to it.
That's
Pursued
dangerous
since
as
the Cold
shit.
War, several designs have found their way inside nuclear submarines and university labs. After decades of attempts, SMRs haven't been a mainstream source of power for local communities just yet, but that might change with NuScale.
Alright, explain it to me. Tell me what you're trying to do here.
Department of Energy. Back in 2000, we were working with the Idaho National Laboratory at the time, and we came up with this concept for something small that could be built in a factory. So inside our modules, we start off with the containment vessel. It's about 76 feet long and 15 feet in diameter, so it's a big cylinder. Inside that containment vessel, the reactor vessel houses the fuel, the steam generator, it's a helical coil steam generator, and everything you need for power producing of steam is inside that one little vessel.
Okay.
Now, the containment and the reactor vessel sit underwater below ground, and you can add 1, 2, 3, up to 12 modules in a single pool. So it's scalable because you don't have to add them all at once. You can do them in increments. Each module will produce about 60 megawatts electric. If you think about homes, it's somewhere around 50,000 homes would be powered by one module.
Holy
There
shit.
aren't any additional cooling pumps or generators that could fail in an emergency, a lesson learned from previous disasters. Because a key element NuScale really emphasized with us is safety.
Passive safety really describes the ability to perform a safety function without power.
Oh,
For
wow.
our design, the reactors will safely shut themselves down without any operator action or computer action, without any AC or DC power, and they'll remain cooled for an indefinite period of time without the need to add water. When you lose power, the control rods actually fall into the reactor vessel, into the core.
And that starts at, okay.
They're held up normally by electromagnets. So you lose power, they disengage, and they fall. So you go from 200 megawatts thermal to about 10 or 11 megawatts in a second or so. If
Jesus.
you look at the control
So
room,
that's the kill
you
switch.
see that a lot of things that we do really don't require operator action at all. All the procedures come up on the screens themselves, and they help you execute the procedures, and they'll help correct you if you make a mistake. So it's a smart control room.
Which all seems quite miraculous, to have a nuclear control room run mostly on its own. NuScale's timeline has more tick marks ahead. Their plant operations are still just on paper or at prototype stage.
Holy
They're aiming
shit.
to turn on their first
Oh, look how fancy that is. Holy shit, it looks like a golf course. Gee, there was some money spent here.
commercial plant near the Idaho
Holy shit.
National Laboratory by 2026, which brings the project full circle.
We finished our design certification application, but it's a pretty comprehensive checklist. So our application alone was 12,000 pages. We're on track to get this design certified with the final safety evaluation report coming out in September of 2020. So that's the target.
And within their
God.
application, NuScale is asking the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission for a different kind of zoning boundary.
So they want to
In
increase the
United States,
area.
There's a requirement that you have an emergency planning zone around your plant, and that zone is a 10-mile radius. The reason we can request a smaller emergency planning zone is because of the very high level of safety that we offer.
If we go back to their animation, the reactor's sitting in a pool that's
Below ground with a biological shield on top of that, and in a seismic category, which is an earthquake-proof hurricane-proof type building. In our analysis, we show that we don't exceed regulatory doses under the worst-case accident conditions at the site boundary.
Okay, so just because they're able to kind of like maneuver this underground with a blast shield over top and earthquake-proof building, they're allowed like 1/10 of the size of the emergency round? Like, that's insane. Like, what's the guide limits for being around? I gotta see, hold on, I gotta see that again.
And in the seismic category, which is an earthquake-proof, hurricane-proof type building, in our analysis, we show that we don't exceed regulatory doses under the worst-case accident conditions.
Show me this
at the
part
site
again.
boundary. So that changes the game significantly in that we can be in closer proximity to population centers.
If you have an SMR and it
Wow,
has an accident, it
that's
would
terrifying.
have less amount of radioactive material to disperse. It would have less energy to disperse. So these are laws of physics, and in certain complicated circumstances are hard to predict in advance. If you think about the kind of accidents we've seen in the past, it has almost always been a bunch of circumstances which nobody had envisioned. If you're thinking about a community, and you go to the community and say, look, we're going to build this nuclear plant near you, but there's a small chance that something might go wrong. It's quite possible you might have to leave your house and never come back, right? Because it's going to be contaminated with radioactivity. How do you feel about it, right?
I'd be pissed.
And, quite a few people would say, no, I don't think I would want that.
Despite this risk potential, the hundreds of reactors operating worldwide have had a pretty safe track record, and overall
Pretty
have caused
safe.
less loss of life than coal or natural gas.
The
Design and
they're
safety
right.
of future reactors in the United States are assessed by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. But there's some context to this agency that bears keeping in mind.
The NRC's fortunes, in a sense, depend on the industry that it is regulating, right? So if the nuclear industry were to essentially shrink and vanish, the NRC would essentially have to vanish too. The NRC and NuScale have been talking to each other for years now and trying to say, okay, here's our rules, here's how you interpret these rules, here's how we can modify our design, all of which does not seem to me to be a thoroughly independent process.
Yeah, because you'd have to clear that through
regulatory
Congress.
Capture in the nuclear industry. But it shouldn't come as any surprise. What entity other than a state government can take on the capital and risk associated with investing in nuclear?
So government funding does play an important part. The question, of course, to ask is whether the government should be spending its money on this pursuit. That's a different question.
That would be something to talk about, actually. That's insane. Like, to be able to just tear down the walls and rebuild something from scratch that is 10 times better than the way it is before. Like, their nuclear reactors are tiny compared to the full-blown ones that you see in the news all the time. That's insane.
Nuclear power movement is appealing to governments who see the potential.
One module could produce 60 million gallons of clean desalinated water per day. So a 12-pack would be enough to provide all the water needs for a city the size of Cape Town, South Africa.
On the flip side, SMRs could exacerbate pre-existing geopolitical tensions.
So China has said they are also developing SMRs, and the first places they want to deploy are on these deserted islands in the South China Sea that are in the disputes. If you're concerned about proliferation, then SMRs are not small in any meaningful sense.
Not only that, if it was to explode, like, wouldn't it contaminate the water and then, because of the currents, just take it everywhere? Like, I'm not sure how much isotopes are able to contaminate a water source, but you think if something goes off in the middle of the ocean, it would kill all the animals in the ocean, well, in that area, and then it would just float through the streams, going from continent to continent, just killing shit. Like, that's my personal grief with it. I don't know, I could be a fucking idiot, and I'm not a, I'm not a scientist in any way.
With these forces ahead, eyes will be on NuScale as they work to reshape the industry and roll out what they are betting on to be a smart, scalable model of nuclear power. Their hope is that a safer design, an automated control room, and other key features will overcome the hurdles that caused previous ventures to fail. However, there are still open questions over nuclear waste, protecting against proliferation, and how a truly passive nuclear plant operates in real time. But until this model is put to the test, the ultimate question for nuclear, of whether smaller really is better, remains an open one.
That's crazy. So, like, alright, let's read some of the comments on this video now. So, let's see here. MSC, the game, says everyone is gangster until Anthony Dell what is it? Dialtov walks in the room. Nuclear power is the most complicated way to boil water. That is true. Attaboy. Let's read some more of these. Robert Davis, the electromagnet safety mechanism is super cool. He loves it. Right on. What are other people? If I don't have a Mr. Handy floating in my kitchen by 2050, I'll be disappointed. Right on. All right, guys, so that's where we're going to leave the episode. If you guys want to watch the full video, I'm going to make a link to it in the description below on this video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace. That was actually dope.
Harry Potter is dead. From this day forth, you put your faith in me.